Yeah, what a name. So basically, I've got the summary. I tried to make this one a bit more like I'm trying a different tactic. This can sound bad, but not giving everything away in the evaluation because I think that's like you've got to tell them almost what you're going to work on rather than right, here's everything you need to work on. But you need to tell them we have to improve your club face position, and then they'll say, okay, how do I improve my club face position? This is a perfect example about club face position, yeah, because he was quite open at the top of the backswing, and then I've written we will work on drills to set it better in the takeaways. That's me trying to lead them into saying, right, I better get some lessons then.
So if you go to your videos, go to the videos, let me have a look. If you scroll down and go into the analysis, yeah.
Let's play.
I just find there's no after videos, tips and drills, right? And I actually think that bit there is almost the most important if you're going to ask me, right? So the analysis, like how long does the analysis go for there?
1.5 minutes.
Right. I just don't feel like that's enough. What you've got to remember is that you need to show value and get them excited about the process. Something that's just a quick 1 minute and 30 analysis doesn't inspire me. These are just quick swing tips. Do you know what I mean? You need to paint a picture, a vision of what 6 months of training with you would look like. So what I would do in that situation, right, is that I would get the videos, the analysis. I would potentially do a side-by-side even. So club face position, focus on ensuring your club face is not overly open at the top of your swing. If you've got someone like Fleetwood who doesn't get the face open, he keeps the face very square. If you put Fleetwood up next to him, it gives this really cool visual. Hell yeah, like I get that. That looks really cool. Like this is, what it does is start to inspire them about the magic of the platform, right? They're like, wow, he's now got Fleetwood next to me compared to this, and I can see that. And wow, all right, he's going to do a lot more of this. What you want to also do is once you've done the analysis, and I would probably do, like even Michael Ferrier-Twist, who's a really top coach on our platform, who's got 110 subscribers. He does heaps of these things. He reckons he does really involved breakdowns on what they need to work on, like up to 10 minutes of stuff like that these guys need to do. And he reckons he has huge success with it because people are like, look at the commitment this guy's showing, look at the value that this guy's showing. And so all of a sudden, 200 pounds a month or whatever it is like, that is totally worth it. Whereas if I got this back, I'd be like, I'm not going to pay 200 pounds for a couple of swing tips.
I'll show you another one that I think was more, or somewhat like the other ones. I think I've tried that different tactic there of being a little bit less, and that way I can kind of go, right, they want to then learn more. I've done a follow-up. Ashton did 2 lessons, for example. I do all my in-person ones in here as well. So
right.
I'm just trying to find one that obviously it's got a little bit more in the summary. James was a guy actually that a lot of messages from him, but I understand what you mean now. But maybe if I go to an in-person lesson, right?
Yep.
This is when you'll start seeing what I'm doing with drills and stuff. The in-person lessons are, I've got to learn from the in-person lessons.
Totally. The way I do mine, for example, is that I'll do an analysis of the videos sent through to me. I will bring in model swings, potentially drills or whatever it might be. I'll use multiple videos to do a comparison. When it comes to after videos, tips and drills, that section is what I use, especially for my online students. Something that one of our great board members and investors said to me one day, this guy, Albert Lee, who created MyFitnessPal, right? So the biggest sports and fitness app ever created, and very process-driven platform, which was all about how do we retain people and get them to come back over time and measure their progress and stuff like that, right? So what he used to say to me is that, Baden, if the student doesn't know exactly what the next step is, they are never going to come back, right? So meaning if you do a swing analysis and send it off to people and go, this is what's wrong, and then let me know if you want to work further on this, people sort of like, well, I don't even really know what the next step is or what you want from me. So when I'm giving either a paid or a free analysis, what I always do is turn the camera on myself. If you scroll down to the after videos, tips and drills, right? So they see in here, you're not utilizing this at all. And this is super powerful because in here is where I would turn the video on myself.
That's me speaking with him.
Yeah.
Telling him the drill is.
But what I would also be doing, potentially even with your in-person online, especially with your online, if we stick to the online stuff, I always turn the video on myself. I'll hitch the camera up, put it against something, press record, and I'll stand there like this, Mike, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, Michael, thanks for sending that through. Really cool. Obviously, you move in a really athletic way, but there's a whole bunch of things we need to get right. So I'll then stand there and demonstrate everything I want him to do. You need to get your body posture better, get your setup angles, wrist angles better, whatever it might be. I'll run through everything. And then towards the end of this explanation video, what I say is, this is exactly what I want to see next from you. And I say this in terms of even if
I like that word.
Even if it's an online person, right, a free evaluation, I talk to them as if they're already in a subscription, right? So
yeah, because you're saying the word next. I want to see what I want to see next from you. I like that. I like that.
Exactly. This is what I want to see next. And when I say next, I get so specific, Michael, it's ridiculous, right? I'm like, right, we know that you've got no shaft lean at the bottom. You're hitting behind your 7-iron. You hit it too high. You're okay off the tee, and you're one of those players that's good out of the rough but terrible off tight fairways. So this is exactly what you're going to do. You're going to go to the driving range on Thursdays. You're going to hit your 9-irons no further than 80 yards, right? And I want you to hit knockdowns where you've got shaft lean at the bottom. You can hit a punch shot, and you are going to launch the ball no higher than 3 meters apex. That is the exact video you need to send back to me by Thursday.
Okay, so then you tell them to send you that video of them doing the drill, yeah.
Of him doing exactly what I want to see next. I did that the other day with one of the directors at Rapsodo. Gave him the exact drill that he has to do. I gave him the shot and the club that he has to hit to do it, and the date on which I want to see it back. And he sent it back to me on that day.
Yeah, that's cool. I felt like initially I was doing a little bit of you're right. My explanations were longer. I would do 2 or 3 different videos, analyze the front, the side on, and the face on, and I would say different things. But then you're right, I would say what they were doing wrong rather than how we're going to improve that. I was basically pointing out what they're doing wrong.
It's not very helpful. Also, everything's wrong. That's what they think.
I feel bad.
Also, it's all broken. This is going to take forever to fix. When you tell them everything that's wrong, they're like, oh, well, this is unfixable. This will take forever. Whereas if you give them solutions and break it down into little bits, right? This is what our top coaches do with their free evaluations. They break everything down into bits and go, this is the next step. The next step after that will be this. And then the next step will be after this. And if you've given them a really rich initial experience where they're like, breakdown, comparison next to Tommy Fleetwood, a demonstration of you doing things. Like, you know that Arcos is obviously integrated into the platform, and you can like give them a 45-day free trial. You're painting this picture of the rich experience of learning from you over the next 6 months. People are going to be like, give me a credit card. This is going to be awesome. Whereas if I got back one of those little 1 minute or 1.5 minute swing tip or breakdowns, which told me everything that's wrong, I'm like, this doesn't even sound like fun. So you need to, yeah. So that's
sounds more like a school lesson, really, rather than
you're just being told by the teacher what's wrong with everything. And that's what, like, when you do these game evaluations and people sign up to have a Zoom with you, that's what you want to be doing, is like painting a beautiful, rich picture of what it can be to learn from you. And you also want to contrast it, meaning, like, when people have in-person lessons, it works for 3 days, right? And then they lose it. I've been teaching for 24 years. Even my best golf, like, I've given golf lessons where a guy is like, oh, it's so good to see you. You fix them up and they're like, yeah, I've got to go overseas and I'm working for the next 2 months. I'll come back in 2 months. And they'll be flushing it as they're walking out that glass door. In my head, I'm like, he's got 0 chance of holding on to that. Like, even if it was the greatest lesson of all time. So what I'm saying is that every student knows that. Everyone who's ever had a golf lesson knows that they can hold on to it for 3 days. So what you do is contrast the online experience to that, which is, guess what? In 3 days' time, when you start losing it, you can still interact with me. You can upload more. We can chat more. We can like assess next steps or why it feels like it's breaking down. Did you go off on a tangent in your head? This is, you know, the richness that you need to sort of bring into the, and it just takes time, mate, because obviously with in-person, we're used to it being a relatively transactional experience, no matter what, because people come in, they pay 80 quid, and then you see them in 4 weeks' time. But you've got to paint a different picture. The online experience is like you're going to become their mentor and guide them through every element of their game. And it's going to be such a contrast to that transactional thing. So that's what you want to do. So that's both
my homework.
swing evaluations. What's that?
That's my homework. When next time, now you're going to say to you next time I see you.
Yeah, exactly. So next time I see a swing lesson from you, I expect to see it like you want to use this as an opportunity to get really good at teaching online and using all the
learning. Yeah, it's completely different.
It's completely different.
It's scary as well. It's a little bit scary because you can't see the ball flight properly. I have to ask them, like, what is your ball? I have to sort of say, what ball flight do you want to get rid of, or what ball flight would you like to achieve? You know?
Yep, totally.
So
but that's the kind of stuff that you want to lean on, right? Because that's the kind of thing that shows the student that you really care, asking questions, bouncing ideas off it. And then, that's when they go, right, I get why this is such a better experience.
what do I do with these guys that have come to me in the past, obviously have come to me just once, and then, I've asked them, like, how are you getting on? Some days they read the message, some days they don't, but they've not got back to me. What would you suggest I do with these people to try and hook them back in?
Well, what you've got to remember is that when you say, how are you getting on? They don't know what they're supposed to be getting on with. You know what I mean? If you haven't set exact homework or the exact thing you want solution to, like I remember, and this is sort of repeating myself a little bit, right? But I was giving a lesson about 5 years ago to a guy in person. He came in to see me because he got an online putting lesson on Skillest, and he found out I was the co-founder. He wanted to do a lesson from me because of the association with Skillest. And he goes, it was the most unbelievable breakdown of my putting stroke I've ever had. And it was really good and it all made perfect sense. And I said, oh, right. So what are you doing next with the next 2 lessons? Because he bought a 3-lesson package. He goes, I've got no idea. He's like, I don't know what he wants me to do. He's like, I had this amazing breakdown and I could see what was wrong and it all made perfect sense, but I don't even know what to do with the next 2 lessons. I don't know what he wants back from me, right? Okay. So that was really interesting because it's sort of the exact same thing, right? Is that when you say to someone, how are you getting on with it? They're kind of like, well, because the other thing about giving someone 5 things that are wrong with their golf swing, it's like, well, how do they all fit together? And like, how am I getting on with which element? Like, how
which part do I start with?
Yeah. How am I getting on? It's like, I don't know, it was all broken. Like, it's still all broken. Like,
yeah. So if your takeaway's bad, then your top of your backswing's bad. They're like, well, what do you want me to start with the takeaway or top of the back?
Exactly right. And what's causing
that? Makes sense.
Like, if I change my setup, is that going to fix the backswing? Or it's like, for a student to answer that's almost impossible. How am I getting on? It's like, as far as I can tell, it's still all completely stuffed.
So what would you recommend? How can I kind of get these people back? Because they've already shown a little bit of interest in choosing myself for a lesson. How do I then break through?
I would ask them if they want to jump on a Zoom. You want to talk about something specific. Why wouldn't you get Tommy Fleetwood doing a little drill? You know how Tommy does those little set drills where he's just worried about the positions. He's setting it to hip level, shutting the face, and then bringing the club through. Like I saw someone on Instagram uploaded that yesterday. And it's all about the face being square, the body or the path rather than fanning it open. Grabbing a video like that and going, sending it to him going, you should do this. Like this.
Right, okay, I like that.
This is a really good drill for you to replicate. Why don't you send this back to me and I'll give you feedback. And then you can explain, well, this is when you keep the face like that, that will prevent the left to right ball flight or the block or whatever it might be. And it just, you're breaking it down into really specific problems, tasks, and sending them in the right direction.
Okay, I'll think outside the box and actually try this. Have you tried this or have you seen this? Okay, that's cool.
Once again, a coach who used our platform or still uses our platform, he'd given 50 individual paid lessons, right? And he'd never got a subscription out of 50 individual paid lessons. I was like, how is that even possible? Like, I couldn't believe it. And I was like, do you mind if I go into your account and have a look at the way you're coaching? And he was doing exactly what sort of you were doing, where he was literally giving these people like breakdowns of everything that was wrong. He's spending a lot of time on it, like 10, 15 minutes on these lessons. But not only was he saying mostly everything that was wrong, but he also at the very end was going, okay, let me know how you get on with that. And then that was it, right? As soon as you say to someone, let me know how you get on with that, it's all over Red Rover. You should be setting the time, the date, the next moment that you're speaking to people, the requirements for the next session. And even then, they should be able to see the 2 months following that, right? All right, then what are we working on? And the problem with the in-person, and what it's taught us to do over years is that when people walk in, right,
We wait for, yeah.
You're like, what are we working on today? That's what we say to the
We
student.
always ask that. We always ask that. Yeah.
And the student's like, I don't know, you're the guy. Like in their head, they're probably thinking that, but then we just get them to hit a couple of balls, and if they're shanking it, we fix that. Whereas great online coaches are so far in front of their student. All right, they're always setting the pace, right? They're a week in front of their student, and they're letting them know exactly what's required over the next sort of week or so.
What the next lesson's going to be.
And when's it due? Like, what do I need to do? What's that going to do for me? Why do I need to do that? And then what are the following steps? And
it's a little bit like teaching complete beginners at golf. If you teach a complete beginner at golf, you always have to sit in tasks of, right, the first thing we're going to work on is your grip. Make sure you keep checking the 2 knuckles, 3 knuckles, whatever it may be. So that's, that makes sense. I think we do it better with beginners in person. We do it much better because we're starting with a blank canvas.
You never say to a beginner, what are we working on today? Like if you said that to a beginner, you would never get another beginner lesson, So you've got to treat everyone a little bit like that when it comes to the remote stuff. But the thing, and I keep repeating myself, the thing that does, it really puts a spotlight on the magic of online, right? Accountability, which doesn't happen in person. There's zero accountability in person. Like, all right, go and work on that for 4 weeks and I'll speak to you in 4 weeks. Accountability on skills is like, all right, this is what we're working on. You've got 3 days to send that back to me. I want to know how you're going. Like, even if it's without a golf ball, I want you doing that drill in your backyard with a scrunched up piece of paper, whatever it is, just execute on what I want you to do. That's the thing that people want accountability. I'm doing a half Ironman in 7 weeks, believe it or not. And I've got a coach that is literally watching everything I do every day. It holds me so accountable. I've got to do an hour and a half on the bike, and then I've got a 3-kilometer swim this afternoon. I get myself that he's going to see that I haven't executed on something, and it keeps me so engaged. It's unbelievable. You've got to have you've got to look with golf. It's a little bit different, right? Because most golfers don't have a lot of time, but it needs a degree of accountability, and they need to know what direction they're going in.
Okay, that's fine.
Emotion is powerful, right? You need to inspire. You need to show the magic. You need to show the contrast. You need people to go, wow, like this is cool. Like I totally get how this is going to totally change my game, and I get how this is going to contrast to the in-person experience, right? If I got one of those like minute and a half swing tips back with like everything that's wrong, I'd be like, this is worse than in person. I'd rather just go and golf with.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, I've had a lot of these guys that haven't come back to me. They've sent me a lot of messages. You can tell how much they care about their own golf because they send me like quite a big paragraph of all like I really want to get rid of I keep hitting it to the right, I keep fading it, whatever, and they're so into it. And then I'm like, how do I bring that back without being overpowering? But then you've got to be that positive energy you're talking about.
And you've got to break it down into consumable bits.
Because they think it's overwhelming. They're a bit scared I'm going to have to change everything in my whole golf swing. But then we know you don't have to. You can change one thing that will then change 5 things.
Exactly. So there's nothing wrong with saying this is a bit broken as long as there's solutions and process to the next steps. Nothing wrong at all with saying something's broken as long as they have the solution and next steps.
I think I've started doing some tips and stuff on YouTube and Instagram. So I think almost doing that with Skillest based on the person I'm teaching. I'm already doing it, but I'm not doing it for people. I'm just doing it for the masses. But I think I've got the idea of doing it. I know how to do it. I know how to tape it. I know where to put the camera. I'm basically doing it for an individual person now. I understand what you mean. Making it much more personable and putting myself on the camera.
Get yourself on the camera.
I would love that. Yeah.
People want to see the faster you create a human relationship bond, and that is always through speaking to people face to face. When I say face to face, I mean either on Zoom or just someone seeing your face. It creates a link to you. That's super important. Trying to get on calls with people if you can. I know that's difficult, but probably the problem recently when you've been trying to get on calls with people, they're like, why am I getting on this call? You've got to explain to them what the call is about, right? The call's a game evaluation, and it's about setting a plan, like what we could do over the next 6 months with each element of your game. And then where do we start? And what does the first week look like?
Okay, I like it. So guide them on the journey. Basically, you're holding their hand.
You've got to hold their
We're going
hand.
this way. We're going this way. You're pulling
Going
them.
this
Yes.
way, which is what is. I know I'm repeating myself, but that's the magic of the remote thing. It's hard to do that when it's in person.
We're used to like in person. They'll walk into the pro shop and they'll say, "Michael, I really need a lesson. My driving's." That's exactly what happens.
All we do in person is react. We're just like, what's wrong? What are we working on today? You're actually always behind the student because if you've never taught the person before, you've got to figure out their pattern and like their tendencies and their concepts, and you're always behind them. Whereas you've got to be in front of them. And being in front of them might be literally stuff like sending them, you know, a type form or a questionnaire every single week. How did your week go? What are you struggling with at the moment? Or it's even like the weekly plan. This is what's happening this week, sort of thing. So, yeah, that's the way